Have you ever been gaming or working online classes and your internet service constantly gets interrupted? First Nations Fiber is about to ensure that just won't happen again. Get ready for high speed at a new level. Click on fnfiber.com and sign up today. First Nations Fiber, empowering people through connectivity.
My name is Daisy Lahache. I'm from Ganawage. And today we're here with Mike Scott to talk about a few different topics surrounding both the community and advocacy work that him and I both do separately. But I think it's a cool opportunity to gain a nice male perspective. He's experienced in a lot of different things, and I'm excited to see where this conversation goes today. So I wanted to ask you, where did it all start?
A very broad question.
Yeah, where did you get like your foot in the door with community work and like connecting with your community and finding your community?
I think it started the moment I got sober, right? Because nothing else could have started up until that point, because I was kind of just stuck in the limbo phase of life where you party, you get drunk, you wake up, you do it all over again, and there's like no goal towards achieving any type of good thing in your life. So once I got sober, I started to look for more opportunities to be a part of something bigger than myself within my community, which was basically just going to these different events, right? I would sit there and I would learn about different topics, such as like domestic violence was one of them. That was about a 2-month program. We sat there, we kind of just talked about different situations that have happened in our lives. We related to one another. And at the end of it, the person who was facilitating decided that I was doing such a good job with, just sharing my story. He said, I'd like to give you this opportunity to go to these high schools and show this program to the youth about domestic violence, because I feel like your story is going to reach them. And once that opportunity happened, it led to another one and to another one. And the more you put out there, the more you get back, I feel. Right, and your heart has to be with it.
I think for myself, it was in our high school. We're like really lucky to have a high school on the reserve and gain that cultural perspective of how to handle certain hardships in your life, such as grief and like the things they don't really, I guess, teach you in high school, like prepare you for, like different emotional hardships and like family troubles and different things like that. But like we're able to obtain some like supports and resources in those areas at our high school, and I think it really made a difference in the way that I was brought up and the things that I would be able to see that's missing within the community. And I felt like that was more like spaces where youth could go to feel connected and feel feel a part of something, greater than themselves, like what you said.
What kind of program was that at the high school?
We don't really have a program for it. It's just kind of like certain, like different teachings throughout the year, like incorporated into our classes. Maybe in a social studies class, they would talk about how we would like unite as a people and how we would care for each other and like our village systems and the roles and responsibilities of the men and women. So they try to instill those teachings into us while we're in our developmental stages, but not everybody pays attention in school.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so like I was real appreciative of those teachings, because for a little while I did go to school off the reserve and I felt like I was missing something, and I was really missing my language, my culture, my family and my community over there. So when I got the chance to come back home and come back to school where I was originally going, I appreciated it more because I went a certain time without it. So when I was back in my environment, I really tried to do the best that I could with what I was dealing with at the time. It got hard though. I graduated high school with my dad away, and it was hard to make it to that finish line. I almost felt like, I don't know, like
felt like giving up.
Yeah, a little bit like, oh, he's not going to be here for this big accomplishment. Like I should just wait and
Mhm.
I don't know, for this accomplishment for when he gets back, so that way he could be here for it. But I'm only hindering my own life and my own success by like holding myself back. So I pushed through as hard as it was, and I made it to the finish line, and it was awesome. And looking back now, it's like, oh, thank goodness I didn't give up,
Do you feel like a lot of the other youth within this community are kind of going through the same thing? Like
Yeah,
they,
I feel like some have given up, and it breaks my heart because I wish I could just like hold their hand and say, "Come on, we're gonna do it together." Like, come on, we're all graduating together.
Mhm.
We're all making it to the finish line. We're all gonna walk across that stage and receive our diploma in our hand. And I feel like just obtaining a high school diploma for people in our community is like a hard but one of the biggest accomplishments that we can do, because it takes a lot to do that, to
Yeah,
make it to the finish line of that.
there's a lot of Indigenous youth who haven't been graduating, especially where I come from in Saskatchewan. We had at one point, you were more likely to go to jail than you were to graduate, right? And it's like that for a lot of Indigenous nations across Canada, across Turtle Island. And when you speak about, having this space and this opportunity to learn about your ceremonies and your people and the histories and the roles of man and woman and how that all plays a part, I never had that opportunity, right? Because as a kid, like a lot of the people I grew up with, we were placed into foster care, right? So by the time I was 10 years old, I was in like over 30 foster homes across Saskatchewan. So if you can imagine, that's 30 different schools, right? And that's me coming back to my family. That's another 10 schools right there. So I've been moved around. I've been displaced a lot in my youth, and I never had the opportunity. The first time I ever learned about me as an Indigenous person, as like the ceremony route, was in jail. Yeah, when I was 12 years old. That was the first time I ever sat with the pipe ceremony, went in a sweat, and yeah, I never had that opportunity. It's kind of crazy to say too, but I also never graduated. I've never actually graduated from anything except for the treatment center that I went to. I didn't graduate kindergarten. I got locked up when I was in grade 7. I got out and I was going into grade 10, so I never graduated from grade 8, and I never graduated from grade 12. But here I am, still getting my education, because I feel like that's such an important thing for us to do, is to learn how to function within this society that we're basically forced to be a part of. Because I do not see the European colonizers leaving this land anytime soon, and we're definitely not leaving, right? So I feel like we need to learn how to function in a good way that benefits us, right? And that education is going to help us maneuver a lot easier through the obstacles that they've placed in front of us as Native people. And yeah,
It's like trying to learn how to walk in two worlds.
yeah, it is. It's how do you do it, right? For us, I feel like that causes a lot of issues, and it really messes up our societies in a way that I don't even know how to say this. A lot of the issues that we have today are because of that colonization. It stems from that. So, what I want to ask you is, do you know much about the history of Ganawage or this territory, like prior to colonization, prior to, people coming here from other parts of the world? How was the people here as a society?
Okay, so we've been here for about we've just crossed our 300-year mark. From this was our final settlement before they took before they secluded us to this spot specific. And prior to that, we were coming from like Albany area, so like upstate New York, Ganatohardege, we call it. That was like our original home. And there we had we had our longhouses, we had our clan system, we had our governance system, our great law, and our condolence, our chiefs. We had our whole system and way of operating as a confederacy. And there's a lot of history that I don't know. I try to learn as much as I can. One thing that I just learned recently, doing a workshop with the Ganawage Collective Impact, was time ago, there was like an invitation for our whole governance system to be invited to overseas for like a conference or something. So all 50 chiefs boarded up on a ship, and they went to this conference overseas, and we never seen them again. They were kidnapped, and their lives were made over there after that, and we never had our governance back like that. And that really hit us hard because we're a whole, not just one nation, we're a bunch of nations, a whole confederacy, and our whole government system of how we operate and everything, they're all gone. So it took a long time to fill all of those roles back and to move forward in the best way that we could. But I don't know what it would have been like back then like that. I know that for like grief and loss and funerals and those things, we have like certain ceremonies that are for the people that are still here on earth. You know, we haven't crossed over yet. So the ceremonies are to help us to move forward in a good way and to clear our minds and to be able to like regain our emotional well-being and to check in with them and be in touch with how we feel and to process all of that. And there's like ways of doing things, but then like, you know, there's so much like toxicity in our communities that like alcohol gets put in the mix. You know, people die, and then the first thing some people want to do is go and drink to relieve some of that, you know. So it's like, it's hard. It's like there's always two options in front of you of the higher path, and then like that low vibrational path that just seems like a easier escape sometimes. You know, so it's like it's hard to steer away from that when it feels like there's so much weight on you, you know. But you just got to keep pushing through if that's not the path that you want for yourself. And
I think some people would even say like easier said than done, right? Because of the environment that they're in. I know for me personally, I've done that many times where I've lost people and I've went and grabbed either a drug, I put that in my body, or grab a bottle, put that into my body, right? Relieve that pain and stress for very, very small amount of time. And then the pain comes back and it's even worse than it was before, right? Because you're dealing with the depression from the alcoholism, everything that comes with that. I don't even know how we got into this topic. We were talking about the
history.
The history.
Yeah. Oops.
We switched over to alcoholism. No, but I think the community, the sense here, like everything that's happened here has happened in other parts of the country to other indigenous nations. And I would say actually even here more than any other parts of the country, right? Because when the colonizers came here, they came to this part of the coast first, right? And it started to work westwards. So your guys' peoples were hit with a lot more, and you guys have been dealing with it a lot longer than other nations have.
Yeah. We have this historical wall that's built, and that was like when contact was first made, and it was like wars and all of that. We started building a wall, but then when the wall was almost complete, they told us to back down and stop the building of it, because if we completed that wall, it was more or less like bring it on, we're ready. So they stopped the build of it and in hopes to die down the wars that were happening back then. And at the time, you know, there was all the residential schools. They were taking all of the children away. And my grandparents, great-grandparents went there. And I only really have like my father's side of the family's history. Like my mother's side, I don't really know. Besides her adoptive family's family history, that a little bits and pieces of information I've gathered over the years, but it's like a big piece that I feel like I'm missing about who I am and my identity as a indigenous person, a Ungwehue person. And like you get like everything from your mom, your clan, your teachings, everything from your mother. You know, that's who raises you, who brings you up. So I feel like because of the circumstances that she was faced in her life, being adopted and into a new, adopted into another nation, and like it did something there, you know. And there's like a trauma there from that I'm probably not really able to talk with her about it, honestly, because we try to, and then we can only get so far, before it gets too heavy. So it's just kind of like an unknown, unspoken, and just carry on and move on and do the best you can with what you got and where you're going. But I would love to learn more about where my mom comes from. I know that she was born in Regina, Saskatchewan.
Oh, wow. Eh?
Yeah.
That's pretty close. That's like Treaty 4 territory.
Mm-hmm. But I think her actual community where she was from was Northwest Territories. But apparently they didn't have any hospitals close by, so they had to drive down to Regina for the nearest hospital. That's why she's born there. And I'm pretty sure that was like closed info adoption, so it can't really like trace too far back into that. But I'm super excited to visit this year, and I feel like it'll be like a nice healing experience in some way to be like in the land of where my stock came from.
Yeah. I think a lot of people deal with like identity crisis, like identity issues, trying to figure out who they are, where they come from, right? If you don't understand that, I think that's going to create a lot of issues for you for the rest of your life, because you don't really even know where to start, where to begin, right? I think a lot of our people are like that. I could go off. I don't have enough fingers and toes to count all the people that are like that. We all know at least one person who's struggling with who they are. And until they figure out who they are as a person, they're never going to get to the destination that they want to be. But it's a struggle, right? If you can't find answers to those questions, especially if people don't want to talk about it. And I think that's a huge problem that we all face, is not willing to speak about these issues, right? Just to say what's wrong. Like, what happened to you? Who hurt you? Like, what happened within your childhood that makes you who you are today? Because a lot of our people are not what they should be. Not in a negative way. I don't want to like call people down and say, you're not this or you're not that. But like, what happened to our people? Where's our warriors today? Where's the people? Where's the system? Where's the laws? Where's the teachings?
And it's almost like I feel like our people face shame when it comes down to reclaiming those cultural things, like stepping back into, let's say you were dancing when you were a child and then you went so many years without it. Well, to step back into the powwow circle, it's like, it's scary, to like reconnect yourself with our ways. If you've been going so far without it, or if you've never gone your life with that and then you want to step into it and start learning it, it could be like super intimidating. And that's why I feel it's so important for like the community organizations to be creating these safe spaces and encouraging our youth and our adults and all ages of life to be connected with our community and who we are, and try to, I don't know, figure out how to unpack and unravel all of those like painful things that were inflicted on our people.
What kind of programs are offered here in Kahnawake for the people in terms of like culture, ceremony, anything that can help keep them off the streets or, from negative places and people?
We do have, we have two main longhouses where we go to practice our ceremonies and share our songs and dances and all of that. So we're very fortunate to have those. We also have the 3 schools in the Kahnawake Education Center. So there's the 2 elementary schools, 3. Well, yeah, Gadiwa Nordu and Indian Way. I don't think they're part of the KEC though, I'm not sure. And then we also have our daycare where our babies can go and they can be like the teachings and cultural perspective like incorporated into the curriculum at an early age. We have the high school on the reserve, which is awesome. And I feel like that's a very important time in your life to be obtaining those knowledges, because it's like that's when you're at all the crossroads in your life and when you're a teenager and in your high school stage. Like if you're going to be picking up alcohol, or if you're going to be picking up like your rattle drum or your rattle, your water drum and singing. We have the youth center. That's an after school program. We have the Kahnawake Collective Impact. They do a bunch of different different activities and workshops. I'm naming all these, but I still feel like there could be more. Like there's something that like all of us aren't filling in some way. Like there's always gaps that need to be filled in one area or another.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's so much room and potential for different projects and different youth to step into like leader roles, to have projects like by youth for youth, or projects by like adults for adults. And
Is there any projects right now for like that youth for youth type of thing?
there's a lot more for by youth for youth, but we have like cutoff ages, you know? So then the
Yeah.
people that are beyond that age, it's like we don't want to cut anybody out, but it's for like the funding and the reporting and that
Yeah.
stuff, you know? So it's not like we want to cut them out. It's just like how it kind of goes sometimes. And it's where there's more spaces that need to be filled by like older generation. But I feel like it's especially hard for people in their 30s and 40s to
Mhm.
like feel connected in their community in certain ways. Like I know personally, like my dad doesn't really feel comfortable going to the Longhouse. My whole life I would ask him to come with me to the Longhouse, come to the ceremony with me. No, I'll drop you off, I'll pick you up when you're finished, you know? And that's just like I'm not trying to call him out, but it's like, I don't know if it's a shame that our men feel like if they haven't been going their whole life, like that stepping back in, you know, like I know my dad used to go to the Longhouse when he was a youth, when he was younger, but then, you know, he had a whole series of life events that happened in his life. And then for whatever reason, he felt like he couldn't go back, or like he wasn't ready, or like there in his mind to come back to ceremony. And I try to encourage him to come with me. And he has actually come with me to a few ceremonies in recent years. So I'm grateful for that. So like, it's like the want to participate has come back.
Yeah.
It's like the actual going and showing up part. That's hard sometimes.
Our ceremonies are powerful. Like they can literally change your life. I'm not too familiar with the Longhouse teachings or the ceremonies of this area, but back where I come from, like we have some pretty powerful stuff that we do yearly, daily, monthly, weekly, whatever it is, whenever your spirit needs that. And I feel like we need to start encouraging each other more, because it seems like it's easier to find somebody on the weekend, like, hey, let's go party, let's go drink. Like you could pick up your phone and have 10 people like, yeah, I'm down, let's go party. Then you ask somebody, hey, let's go to the Longhouse, let's go to a ceremony. And they're like, no. It's a lot harder to find people that want to heal as opposed to hurt themselves type of thing, right? And that thing you were saying about like there's that cutoff age. It's like, oh, you reached 28, 30. Oh, nope, sorry, you can't be part of this anymore. It's like, well, I'm only this old. I still haven't got it figured out yet, you know? And I think like once people reach like the age of 30 plus, they say our life is like just beginning at that point, right? And depending on what kind of knowledge and stuff that you've learned throughout your life up until that point is going to determine the way that the rest of your life is going to play out, right? Because my dad's going on friggin', I don't know, like 60 something this year. And it's sad to say, like my dad is still an addict. My dad still drinks. My dad still gets high. He's actually went above and beyond and started using like intravenous drugs, crystal meth. Like my family is really messed up back home. And I feel like it's a lack of culture. It's a lack of identity. It's a lack of ceremony. It's a lack of speaking up and speaking out about the issues that they've faced throughout their life, right? And the more people carry that stuff with them, it's just poison. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like it took me a long time to realize that keeping everything inside was physically damaging to my spirit. So it would be cool to see a youth council here in Ganawage where it's led by youth, like creating those leadership roles, like you're saying, where they have like space where they can create whatever they see fit for their community, for the young people. Like they want a new basketball court. They want new lacrosse equipment. They want whatever they need, right? Like they can work towards that goal. And at the same time, you're encouraging them by providing them with something for being a part of this, right? Like a reward system almost, in a sense. Because there is funds set in place, and I know that every community has funds set aside for their youth.
But it's so hard to access it. Even as a youth, I'm like, give us money for workshops. And they're like, you missed the deadline.
But I'm not even saying just for workshops. Like I'm saying reward these kids for participating throughout the year. Send them on a trip somewhere around the world. Let them get exposed to more than what they see right here. Because I'm telling all you people listening right now, there's more to the world than Ganawage and Montreal and Toronto and however far you've been. Like, get to a different continent, see a different culture, explore and just learn and grow and see the world. Bring that knowledge back to your people.
Supermarché Idia, your one-stop grocery store for your everyday needs, offering regular groceries as well as Afro-Caribbean and international food products. Looking to save money? Then Supermarché Idia is the right place for you. Located at 72 Boulevard Saint-Jean-Baptiste in Chateauguay, behind the A&W. Open 7 days a week. For more information, check out their website at idiasupermarket.com. That's IDIA supermarket.com.
So some programming that we do have for our youth and all ages of life are really not as inclusive as I think they should be. I think we should bring together different ages because we have different things to learn from all ages. You know, no matter how many years you've lived, maybe you're lacking in some areas of knowledge, and maybe you have an incline in other areas because you've obtained those teachings. But if you're 30 years old and you never obtained the teachings from when you were a youth, you're still that 30-year-old that never obtained those teachings. And I think it's super unfair to have a cutoff age for programming. I think it should be inclusive and encouraged to like maybe blend the ages. Like if you see this workshop posted and you're interested, I think you should definitely be able to attend with no restriction, like to participation or anything like that. So we do have a few in Ganawage that offer workshops and try to be as inclusive as possible. And that's with the Ganawage Collective Impact. We have a few different action teams with them. One is like in language and culture, so they specialize in all things language and culture. They're working on developing programming and they have like self-guided language learning groups. So it's all like voluntary. If you want to learn the language with other community members, you can all learn together and like encourage each other to learn. We do have some cultural workshops, but I feel like it's not a lot. Like it's not as like, if you want to be immersed in your teachings, like where do you go? You can't just go to the longhouse like, oh, what are you teaching today? Mm-hmm. And I wish there was something like that where you could just pop in after school and
be a part
of something. Yeah. And there is places like the youth center, like after school program where you could go and go shoot ball, like go in the art room and stuff like that. But to actually like be connected in a way that like fulfills all you guys and brings you guys like something, I feel like we're lacking in that area.
One thing I think that every community should have, I don't know if there's one here or not, and this might be a touchy subject for some people, but I feel like every community should have some sort of like safe house type of thing, because there's a lot of places that shut down at some point. Like the youth center might be only open until 7 p.m. on this day, 9 p.m. on this day. What happens to these kids that are going through something so terrible at home that they don't want to be there? Mm-hmm. Like they're being hurt in some form or another, or they're just not safe in any way, shape, or form. Is there a place within this community that those youth can go to if they need help? Or are they kind of just left to, deal with that on their own type of thing?
There's really no like resources where to go if this happens, and we're not taught that around here, like where to go, what to do. It's just kind of like we're left to figure it out. Like, oh, I think my auntie might still be up at this hour, or my cousin just lives down the road. I'll go check in there. It's kind of like you're going to go that route, or you're going to call the on-call worker at social services and then open that whole can of worms, And it's like, nobody wants to do that. That's like the hardest thing to do, especially within your family. You're kind of feeling like you're letting everybody down.
Mm-hmm.
But then the longer that you stick around and I don't know if you're dealing with stuff that you're not supposed to be dealing with as a child.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the longer you stick around and deal with that stuff, you're only letting yourself down.
You're getting hurt more. I feel like every kid within every community deserves to feel safe, to be safe, right? So I think maybe that would be something to look towards too as a community, to have that space opened up, right? And it's not just where you drop in and, like take advantage of that place or those people helping you. It's more helping you get to where you need to be, where you are healthy, you are happy, you are safe, right? Because I guarantee you right now within your community, every week there's at least one person who is not safe where they are. And it could be because they party there every night, they party there every weekend, they drink there constantly, right? And that environment can open the door for a lot of negative people to come in and hurt them in different ways. I don't know if you ever watched the movie Once Were Warriors, but that movie really reminds me of my childhood.
Yeah, they had us watch that in high school, and I remember we were all like shocked watching it and emotional. It was a heavy movie to watch.
And that stuff happens as much as we don't like to think that it does, but it's out there, not just this community, other parts of the country as well. So what I'd like to see for your community is just somebody for these young people to talk to if that does happen to them, in a sense, right? And I guess it's all about organization and finding the funds, because it's all about money, it seems like. Yeah. But I feel like it can be done and it should be done. Yeah. So
luckily we do have people like we can go to talk to about that, and like specialists within the community that handle those things. But like it should be easy access.
Mm-hmm.
Like
also discreet too.
Access.
Yeah. A lot of people don't like to say what's wrong, especially within Native communities, because once a rumor starts within the community, it's like, boom, all of a sudden everybody's got an opinion of what happened or what's going to happen next, right? Like, I'm pretty sure all of us sitting in this room have heard a rumor about us at some point, and you're like... Yeah.
And one scenario I felt really like something that happened, I just felt like it was really unfair, was like if you speak on certain things like at the school or whatever, and it's mandated, like they have to report, so they report to the social services, and then the social services will get involved. And then at the time I wasn't living I wasn't living at home with my family. I was living in a foster home, so I had like no contact with my dad at the time. And social services told me, okay, well, because we know about this, we're giving you the option that either you tell your dad or we're telling your dad, because he has to know. And I'm like, no, I don't want him to know. That's going to hinder my healing process, and it's going to mess things up for me, because I could already see that he was going to like put the situation on blast back home. And now I remember I was away. I was in a group home at the time. And then I spoke on something that was, I guess, along the lines of why I was in the group home, why was I acting out in the way that I was, and it was because I was hurt in certain ways, and I had finally confided in someone about that, and they had to report, and then I had to get back to my dad, and I really didn't want it to. And I feel like I was failed in that area. I wasn't protected. Like my story wasn't protected. I wasn't protected as like I don't want to say the word victim, but like ultimately that's what I was in that situation. And I feel like if it's still run like that, it should definitely be changed, because I feel like it still affects me to this day, rather than in a different way, in a more intense way than if I didn't have to tell my dad about it. And I could have just proceeded in my healing in the way that I wanted to, with the people that I like truly felt supported by with that specific situation.
And then you could have had the option at some point to tell your dad when you were ready to tell him, type of thing, right?
Yeah, and like, mind you, we weren't speaking for like 6 months. So this was the first time I'm seeing my dad in 6 months, and I got to tell you this thing because they're making me tell you, not because I want to. Mm-hmm. So it was just like, I don't know, an all around unpleasant experience.
So that needs to change, the discretion part of it, right? Like, I understand if there is an emergency situation where something needs to happen right at that moment, where it's like life or death, or or some kind of, situation. Like it needs to be handled and dealt with discreetly in a sense. So, because that will hinder people from coming to this program to ask for help, right? A lot of people, if they find out, oh, no, they made that person do this, so people aren't going to want to come and share what's wrong with them if they know that will happen. So those are a couple things I could think that your community could use.
Yeah. Another thing that we do have, and I'm grateful my friend wrote this down, we do have the Oherogu program, and that is something that's very important to our youth and our aunties and uncles across the Confederacy, right? It's all around. We all should have that. If we don't,
How do you say that?
Oherogu.
Oherogu?
Yeah, and it's the rite of passage when the young men and women are entering their adolescent and adult years, and it's like the transitional from youth to young adult, and how your body changes and your roles and responsibilities also change and increase, and it kind of just provides you with all of the teachings to be able to handle these like hard situations in the best way possible, where it doesn't keep you at a low spot. You were given the tools to, okay, I'm in a low spot. I can acknowledge that, but I'm not going to be in this low spot forever because it'll pass. And it just like it helps a lot. I didn't actually go through the Oherogu program. I wish I did, but yes, we're sitting with a 4-year Oherogu goer. But I feel like maybe my life would have turned out a lot differently. I would have been able, like, better prepared on how to handle certain things, or maybe I wouldn't have been so sad over certain things for so long. It would have like helped me move on if I had gone through this Oherogu program. But
I think my daughter could benefit from that. She's at an age where she's like 15 now, and she's really emotional. I think anybody at that age, right? 15, like preteen, teenagers, they're really, their feelings are so amplified. And I remember being that young and like thinking like, I don't even want to be alive because I feel this way, right? Like they're so amplified, and those teachings are so important. You know what I love about our people? I love how resilient we are and where we came from. And like, what like boggles my mind and it just makes me think is like how they used to call us like savages. You guys are so dirty. And like they would speak down on indigenous people, right? Like other races, that we were these really terrible people, but we were such a beautiful nation of indigenous peoples all across this country. Just those ceremonies alone.
yeah,
Right? Like the teachings that are passed. There's even some native nations within Canada that the elders would take care of the babies for like the first couple of years of their lives. And they would pass down that knowledge, right? And then, the moms, the aunties weren't also just aunties. They were basically moms to all the
moms.
children, right? Like second moms. And everybody plays a role within that community. And you talk about the
Oherogu.
Oherogu. Like you talk about that rite of passage to becoming, a young man, a young woman. What are those passages for our young men today? For our young women, we have a lot of Aboriginal gangs across Canada. And I feel like the warrior spirit is there, but it's led in a really dark, wrong direction, because we're trying to figure out how do we get back to that warrior. What is a warrior? How do you define that in today's terms?
It's an important question. It
because
really
you know
is.
what we used to do? We used to protect and provide. Now we hurt and divide, right? Not only ourselves, but our families, our communities. We have 5 native gangs within my city, right? We have the highest population of inmates that are locked up across Canada per capita as a race. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but all of us natives in Canada make up less than 5% of the population. Your reserve, my reserve, that reserve, we make up less than 5%, but we make up more than any other race combined that are locked up today, that are in foster care, right? Until we figure out who we are. we're going to be lost. If we keep drinking, if we keep getting high, we're not going to feel those feelings that we're supposed to feel. We're not going to grow. We're not going to become who we're supposed to be. So anybody out there listening, if you put that bottle down, if you pick yourself up, if you feel what you're supposed to feel, trust me when I say you're not going through it, you're growing through it. Right? And a lot of people are going to be like, what does that mean? You're supposed to feel how you feel. So grow through that pain, cry, feel, let it out. Those tears are healing in a sense, right? I don't even know where I'm going with this. I like how it's you sharing a lot of the stuff because, you know, I'm a visitor here, right? Like I'm an outsider, and this podcast doesn't have to say, it can be whatever you want it to say.
Mm-hmm.
I just like to give like my input of how I feel we can change things for the better, not just for your people, but anybody that's listening, right? Because this isn't just information for this community.
Yeah. Well, my hope from this podcast is any males listening.
Any males listening?
Males listening, for them to be encouraged to step into that warrior within and to really try to answer that question for themselves, what it means to be a warrior in today's world, and how they can fill their roles within their family systems in the best way that they can.
I'm still learning how to be a man, if that makes sense. I've never had a man show me, not even my own father was there to teach me how to do certain things, right? I've had to learn from various men within my life. Even women have taught me how to be a man. And that might not make sense to some people, but you learn from your environment. And I was taught by, you know, gang leaders, drug dealers. I was taught by the worst of them. And I had a choice to make as a man, as a young man, which route I wanted to live by, right? And I've been to jail. I've been to, you know, situations. I've been in situations where people could have died. And ultimately, it's my choice to not want that, because the life I have today is a beautiful life and it's peaceful. I've been living my entire life in turmoil and constant worry, constant stress, thinking about how am I going to get this? What if this happens? What if these people come and do this type of thing? And I have 5 beautiful children, right? And I'm learning how to be a father. But one thing is for certain, I will always be there for them. Like I said, my daughter's 15. And the moment that she was born was something I can't express into words. But when I held this little person in my arms, it was like nothing else mattered. And I'm pretty sure every father feels this for their daughter or their son. But they would do anything to give them a better life than they've had. And some men don't realize how important it is to just be present within their lives, right? To just be there, not even to talk sometimes, just to even listen. But I'm still learning. I don't know what it is to be a man yet. All I know is I have to be there. I have to be present for my kids. I have to lead by a good example. And what that means for me is to not drink, to not get high. Because if they can look at their father and say, you know, my dad doesn't need to do this to feel a certain way. He is who he is. That's who he truly is. And, you know, just talking with my kids. A lot of men have a hard time talking, saying what's wrong, right? My dad has a hard time even saying, I love you. I swear. And like, I'll say, see you later, Dad. I love you. Yeah. See you later. And that to me is like, it proves to me that he doesn't love himself enough. And a lot of men don't love themselves, right? And we need these men to start loving themselves. Makes me feel emotional, you know, because me and my dad's relationship right now is pretty rocky. We haven't really talked too much since COVID happened. And he actually sent me a text not too long ago, and he was basically, you know, guilt tripping me and saying like, when I die, like, don't come to my funeral type of thing. And I'm like, holy man, like, you know, and showing her the text message. And
wow, that sounds so similar to mine. Said I could die tomorrow and you wouldn't even care.
Yeah.
So
it's like, I do care, but
I feel you in that sense.
I care. You know, I care, Dad, but I also care about myself. And I care about my well-being. And if you aren't wanting to change or be healthy, then, you know, it's not selfish for me to give my kids a better life. it sucks because my dad doesn't even know my kids. He sees my daughter, she's 15, and she's like, I saw your dad today, you know. And like, oh, did he say hi? And she's like, no, he didn't even recognize me. Like, you know, like
It's like, it's heartbreaking.
I never knew my grandparents on either side. Now my daughter, you know, my mom passed away when I was 22. So she never got to know my mom. She doesn't know my dad, right? And that's where this intergenerational effect style stuff comes in, and they say it's going to take a long time for that healing to begin. But for me as a man, to start somewhere, a starting point would be to get sober, to stay sober, right? Because you create more opportunities for yourself. And the more better and healthier your life becomes, the more it affects your children. Because I guarantee you, I don't know the situation between you and your father, if he's sober or not. But if he was sober, I guarantee you guys would have a lot healthier relationship.
He was like a superhero, a super dad when he was on a good path. There was nothing that he wouldn't do for me as his daughter, and as him as my dad. And to see like the challenges he's faced in the past 10 years, just of what I've been consciously aware of, you know, that's just the things that I've seen. But then there's a whole 10 plus years of things that I didn't see that I don't know about. Or maybe I've heard like some little stories here and there, bits and pieces, but maybe he'll never be able to like face those things, you know? So it's like, it's really hard to, like, I want to be there. I want to hug my dad right now, you know? Like, I get so emotional talking about this stuff. But it's like, what do we do? Really, what do we do?
What do you want for your dad?
I want him to live a sober, happy life. I want him to have both his daughters happy in his life, playing, having a nice family time, quality time, a nice, happy, healthy house.
How do you think he can get that?
First step would be to get sober.
It's hard. Any men out there listening right now, like, I'm not going to lie to you guys and be like, getting sober is so easy. It's not. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life, but it's also one of the most rewarding things that I've got. You get a sense of clarity when you start living a sober life. And once you get that clarity, you start to get motivation. And once you get that motivation, you start to fix your medicine wheel. And the more work you put into yourself, the more that you get out of your life, if that makes sense. So you can fix yourself, but you have to want it. You can't just rely on other people to fix your life for you, because you're the only one that can choose and decide what you want for yourself. But trust me when I say there's people that are praying for you. There's people that love you. There's people that need you in their life. And we want you to work the best that you possibly can towards making yourself better, not only for you, but for your kids, for your family, for your friends, right? I think I learned how to be a little bit more of a man today, and I don't really talk too much about this stuff ever, really. And it makes me think about like my family, my past, and you know, I've come a long way. I'm only, how old am I? 34? I don't even know how old I am anymore. I'm 34, right? And I don't like comparing myself to like other people, but I feel like I got a good head on my shoulders today, as opposed to where I was or where I statistically should be, right? As an Indigenous man. It's hard though, man. It's hard to function some days. And I'm only like running on 1 hour sleep today too, so legit hard to function.
All right, you wanna close it off with something nice?
It'd be cool to get opportunities to come back here and actually like speak to, I don't know how many nations are around here, because I've only been to Ganawage.
Yeah. Akwesasne, there's a lot of men there too.
Yeah.
And Ganasadage, and those are like the three main closest communities, and along with Ganyanke and Sueco.
I'm glad we didn't make it about me, because like normally when sometimes I go and do these kinds of things, people are always like, okay, share your story. Like, I wanna know your story. Right?
Yeah.
I wanna hear about your people and what's going on over here.
Yeah, well, ultimately, anything that I learn and any teachings that I gain in my experiences is ultimately to start walking them and implement them in my life, but then also hoping that that has a ripple effect within my family, right? So that's also me leading the example for my parents by choosing to be sober and by not drinking or using drugs, and trying to stick to a better path and way of life, and hoping that I'll not only inspire my family, but my community and other youth that see maybe themselves in similar like experiences that maybe we relate on or share or whatever. I've also been in foster homes, different series of events, have happened in my life, and I don't really like to talk about them either, but in certain opportunities like this, where it can really help somebody, and also myself, it's like healing to talk about this stuff and to be okay talking about it and not feel like ashamed or weak talking about this stuff. Yeah, so I really appreciate you taking the time to come here today and to speak with us and to give our listeners in Ganawage or near and far something good to really think about and listen to. Nyawako, Scott. Scott.
Thank you for inviting me. You guys' territory is beautiful. The people here are amazing, welcoming. I hope to come back someday. If anybody ever wants me to come to their community, you can find me either on Facebook under Mike Scott. I also have a website. It's called bookmikescott.com. It's very simple, very easy to remember. Other than that, I'm very grateful that we had this conversation today because it helped open my eyes to, that role of a man. And I'm going to work harder now to be a better person, better friend, better father. And I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come here, inviting me, being welcome.
Yeah,
The views and opinions of the guests expressed in this podcast do not reflect those of Iorì and its employees.